Hi. I came across a article. I was looking for things that dealt with tiny apartments, micro apartments, studio apartments that are small, because I am stuck in one. I live in a micro apartment. I cannot get a larger apartment, and I cannot understand why anybody would want to live in a micro apartment when you're constantly bumping into things and knocking things over. Unless the micro apartment has uh, tables that slide into the wall or fold up into the wall, beds that or Murphy beds that fold out of the wall, things like that. My apartment came unfurnished. It wasn't the greatest apartment in the world, but it was cheap and I could afford it at the time. And every year since then, it goes up $5. I don't live in Seattle, but I do a lot of things from here that I try to help Seattle. I love Seattle. I did live in Seattle for a while, and then family happened, and I ended up having to go back home. So Seattle is way too expensive for me now. But I will always love Seattle. I do loads and loads of artwork that cater to Seattle. I even sell some of my Seattle artwork that I do to people that are living in Seattle. So having said that, back to my original statement about micro apartments, I can't understand why anybody would give up freedom of space in order to minimalize their life to where they're living out of a suitcase, basically. I need a kitchen. I love to cook. I'm an artist. I got to have a studio that I can work in, even if it's a small bedroom-sized studio. I need to have a small studio, and when I do my videos, I need to be able to turn around without catching my foot on the cord and knocking my camera on the ground. I've knocked it down twice, and it's almost broke my camera. I have an Nikon L830. It was not very expensive. I bought it used, but I love this camera. It takes great photographs, and it does good video, which is what I'm using now to record this. But back to my micro apartment, and this is a story that I came across on a blog, I guess, a blog by, well, it doesn't say who it's by, but it was called The Rise of Seattle's Tiny Apartments and the Needed Death of the Private Kitchen, which I don't understand why they would say, and the needed death of a private kitchen. It says here, when the person visited Bologna in 2013, after drinking at some small bar and cafe, they had the chance to come across the remains of a 16th century Jewish ghetto. It was starkly different from any other part of the city. It was as if there were no streets or alleys, only alleys, only alleys. Life was squeezed into a very small area. I recalling with horror the words of the British economist John Maynard Keynes used to describe Harry Dexter's White, a brilliant Jewish American economist, and then the voice for a U.S. State Department that would shape global economics for 30 years. The chap knows every rat run in his local ghetto, but it is difficult to persuade him to come out for a walk with us on the highways of the world. Those words bit me. Keynes knew what he was saying, knew the history of his insult. It was all there in Bologna. Speaking of Bologna, that's where bologna was created. An early Jewish ghetto, the Rat Run. Speaking of that, everything is going micro apartments these days. Seattle is doing the micro apartments. People are flocking to the micro apartments not because they're trying to downsize. Yes, there may be a few people that are thinking that An 800 square foot apartment is way too much wasted space. But if you are living in an apartment and you have need for that amount, then yes, it is a necessity for you. It says here, but weirdly, this socially produced monster, the ghetto, was by an accident of history. Also the future not only of the urbanist movement, but the capitalocene city. If we are to live in any kind of future, we are going to have to live like this, the rat run. Close to other buildings, close to others. Buildings climbing to the sky, streets with little room. And this brings me to the matter at hand. KIRO recently posted with some dismay that Seattle has the tiniest apartments in the United States. Which is true. I have seen them. They are very, very tiny. And they are micro apartments, and they are making people feel that it is chic to have one. KIRO wrote, according to a study by Rent Cafe, Seattle boasts the tiniest apartments in the United States. What is it like when you boast about having tiny apartments? It's like you turn around and you're in somebody else's apartment now. As soon as you bend over to pick up something and you back up a few feet, you're in somebody else's apartment. You're no longer in yours, you're in theirs. Couldn't take it. It says here, boasts the tiniest apartments in the United States. An average apartment size of 711 square feet. 711 square feet? I live in 284 square feet and I can't take it. It's way too tiny. And a 711 square foot apartment is a good size apartment. That's not tiny. It says here, that is smaller than Manhattan, Los Angeles, and other major cities. How did this happen? Just like, okay, they're saying that a tiny apartment of 711 square feet is tiny. It is tiny. I live in less than 300 square feet of apartment. That's 400 square, more than 400 more square feet than I have in my apartment. And I have a studio apartment. It's got a bathroom. It's got an entryway. It's got a walk-in closet with a small spot to put a bed. It has a kitchen and it has a living room. When I cook, everything that I cook gets all over the apartment. If I cook a steak, my whole apartment smells like a steak for a week. No matter what I do, no matter how I work it, it's all in my clothes. It smells like shit. The steak is a good steak, by the way. And I cook it really well. I use truffle butter, which that's one of my perks. I have a friend that works at Red Lobster, and he brings me 2 or 3 tiny containers, quart containers of truffle butter. It says here, how did this happen? To 711 square feet. How did this happen? Apparently because of the sharp increases in micro apartments. But why has this increase occurred? Because it's essentially the only way developers can provide affordable housing without incurring severe damage to all that matters to the market economics. Profit. They have figured out how to make a smaller apartment, talk people into believing that it's better for the environment, that it's cozy. It's not tiny, it is cozy. I saw an apartment on a video. It was 12 units, 100 square foot pod, about the size of a bedroom. 100 square foot pod. There was 12 of them. 100 square foot pods connected to one bathroom and one kitchen. And that was considered a 12 bedroom apartment. That's how they were able to get around it. And they were charging, guess how much? Close to $2,000 a month for those apartments. And they were telling people, look, you go out and you work during the day, right? You work during the day. You go out and you drink until you're drunk. And you go out and get shit-faced every night. Or you get high every night after work. And you just want to come home and crash. Your nightlife, your life is outside of your apartment. Your apartment is just a place where you hang your head. And you go to sleep at night so you can get back up and you can work and make them billion-dollar companies more money, like Microsoft and Amazon and Facebook and Google and Yahoo and all these other companies. You're making them loads of cash. They say your apartment is outside and all you need is a place to hang your hat and to lay your head and to store your clothes. So that's what they build. And they make you think that it's a good place to go and it's chic. They make you think that it is chic, so you're going to want it. And after 3 or 4 people decide that they want it, other people decide, hey, well, I suppose everybody else is doing it. And then you got those people that say, well, I had like a 1,000 square foot apartment, but I looked at everything in my living room and there was like all kinds of space. I don't need all that space. I need my couch to be right up next to my TV. And I need my TV right up next to the front door. And I need my front door right up next to my walk-in closet. And I need my walk-in closet to be right up next to my kitchen, which is right next to my bathroom and my bedroom. As a matter of fact, I don't need a bedroom. I can sleep on my couch. Or I can have a fold-down bed out of the wall. And the big developers are making loads and loads of money. These small apartments are still expensive, but are cheaper than apartments that offer lots of space, and most importantly, a whole private kitchen. And here we see something wrong. The production of affordable housing by the private sector. That's turning into something that looks very much like the future way of life in a capital scene city, which means they're making as much capital as they can and they're spending as little as possible. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Independence Day, but Judd Hirsch was in it along with Will Smith and then a few other people. But Judd Hirsch played the dad in this movie. And he says to the president, when the president asks, how were we able to afford this? Because it was Area 51 and they had a space down there where they could deal with aliens and stuff. And Judd Hirsch looked at the president. He said, you don't really think that they spent $40,000 on a hammer and $50,000 on a toilet seat, do you? Well, that's the way it is with apartments. You don't really think that it's costing them all that money just to build, and that's why they've got to charge all that. No, they do it because Seattle, you all bend over and you just take it. Now here, the accidental good is that these micro apartments have eliminated a luxury that is in itself makes no sense. The kitchen. KIRO also wrote, another factor is that some developers have found a way around inclusionary zoning. The Puget Sound Business Journal reported that one Seattle developer has favored micro apartments as a way of getting around Portland's rules. Similar tactics, I don't know why they would say Seattle developer has gotten around Portland's rules, because Portland, although it is kind of like Seattle, it is a ways from Seattle. It says here, Portland's rules. Similar tactics have been used in Seattle. Basically, the company builds apartments without kitchens. Full kitchens are located in common areas. See, the 12-bedroom apartment with one. The 12-bedroom apartment, oh, that was my alarm going off. The 12-bedroom apartment that Seattle has started to create. It's a 12-bedroom apartment with one kitchen and one bath. That's how they get around the zoning. It says here, full kitchens are located in common areas. This allows for a lot more smaller apartments to rent at lower prices, but I don't think $1,500 to $2,000 is actually lower rent. And who would want to share a kitchen with 12 other tenants? Of course, they're going to tell you you'll eat at fancy restaurants because you're able to save on grocery costs. Now, I'll tell you, if the apartments that they were renting, included utilities, you included gas, electric, air conditioning and such, yeah, it might be worth it there. But if you have to pay your own utilities, that could be an extremely amount of money. Hold on a second. I'm going to go in and I'm going to fix my alarm real quick. And I'm going to give it 5 more minutes. So that way I can finish up this video. Yeah, so here, what they're doing is developers would love to sell apartments with massive private kitchens and thereby make more money, but the policies have forced him or her to do something that at once keeps the profit flowing, the monster, and as a byproduct, something that's right, the elimination of a costly luxury. They're looking at a kitchen as a luxury now. The fact that almost every apartment in this city has a kitchen is nothing but obscene and not at all sustainable. The fact that almost every apartment in this city has a kitchen and is nothing but obscene and not at all sustainable. Kitchens, if they are in any kind of place, should mostly be shared, but best of all is that we eat in places that are built to prepare and serve food, public places. The very idea of a kitchen in every apartment and house is, if given proper thought, just plain nuts. It's inefficient. That's what this person thinks. The private kitchen is a monster of waste. Among other things, it occludes the relationship between what is wanted and not wanted. In an isolated kitchen, all that is not wanted simply ends up in the bin. Also, it is stupid that every apartment or house prepare its own meals for its own consumption. It doesn't take much thinking to appreciate this fact. Living in the capital scene city will mean more of our daily activities occur in public or communal spaces. So basically what they're telling you is, in this article, the person that wrote this is that they want everybody to be friends. And they don't want any privacy. I love a kitchen. I cook. I have done one video that I have posted called The World's Smallest Kitchen by the Pauper's Budget, which is me, the Pauper's Budget. I'm poor and I'm on a budget. I know how to get the most out of it. The other day I went to this grocery store by my house. They had a 50% off sale on steak. They had some porterhouse steaks, which gives you a strip on one side and it gives you a strip on one side and basically a ribeye on the other. It's basically 2 steaks in one. But I got them for about $9. And the steaks, I crap you not, this is my face, the steaks were probably about like that big. They were that big. And they were about like, my thumb. They were about like, about that thick. Yeah, about that thick. And it had marbling that was really great. And I bought 4 of them. I could have bought more, but I only wanted 4. I put 2 in the freezer and I cooked 2. And that's why I'm known as the Pauper's Budget, because I know how to get things on a budget. And if I was able to live in Seattle and could afford it, I could help other people that can't afford to live in Seattle. I get $771 a month. That's all I get. Is $771 a month. I do make extra money on my artwork when I sell portraits of Seattle. When I sell paintings of Seattle, my print, I can sell them for about $100 a piece, and they're limited edition and they're signed. But when I'm not doing that, I make $771 a month on disability. If I could get an apartment for as much as I'm paying here, which is $440 a month, if I could get that same apartment price in Seattle, I could live in Seattle on that. So, having said that, the micro apartment for me is completely stupid. I don't like it. It's too small. I can't move around. I can't cook. I can't do anything that I want. I'm going to leave you off on that note. This has been All Things Considered, because I consider all things. Have a good night, Seattle, and all points beyond.